My name is Jameisha Williams. I presently serve as the academic specialist for 612 literacy. A little bit of my experience is that I taught 5 years language arts, 6th through 12th grade. I taught both in the state of North Carolina and in Maryland, so I have exposure on both ends. In my capacity as an academic specialist, I cover 6 schools. The schools, I kind of do the checks and balances of their adopted literacy programs, and I make sure that their instructional program is strong enough to develop effective classroom instruction such that we're able to use our data to ensure that we're meeting or growing towards our AYP every year. So when No Child Left Behind was introduced under the Bush administration, I was a classroom teacher. I felt at that time, and I taught 9th grade English, which is the tested area. I felt at the time that it was a good, it was a what are they called? Federal legislation, because it forced teachers to try to meet higher goals and achieve higher standards. But as my capacity has changed into a central office level position, I see that because data is our accountability measure with No Child Left Behind, we often use the data to number teachers from best to worst. And that's not necessarily the case, so we expect that teachers that are doing a good job always end up with the best data set at the end. And ultimately, with the administration, by the year 2013, all students would be on grade level. Unfortunately, because our data is our accountability measure, I've seen kids kind of pass through the system because schools just want to meet AYP in certain areas. The state has adopted all sorts of loopholes to get kids beyond the test, whereas high stakes testing is what was adopted under the legislation to be the measure that children were on grade level. So, you know, the big picture is that we are using our students' data from the high stakes testing to determine whether or not they're on grade level. And then if we determine that they're on grade level, based on the test, they move on. That doesn't speak to the depth with which they have mastered the content on all levels in all content areas. So my feeling is just that initially, I think the Bush administration saw it as a great thing that all kids would eventually be on grade level. However, in the process of achieving that dream, we lost sight of what was important in education, which was making sure that we built upon the foundational skills that are necessary to move children forward in scholarship. Fortunately, I was able to be a part of the ASCD Common Core Summit. I think it was maybe back in January here in the state. And at that summit, they talked about the waiver. And what they said about the waiver was that the Obama administration had given states the right to do this opt-out waiver because of the transition to Common Core and the race to the top. So at that time, the deadline was like sometime in February, and North Carolina was one of the few states that had already gotten everything together with the waiver. So from my understanding, the waiver allows the state to basically say, we are not following the rules of the federal legislation, No Child Left Behind, because we are in preparation for the Common Core state standard adoption, which is a shift of everything that we presently do in terms of teaching and learning. So I feel like the waiver was a positive move just because we've spent so much time focusing on testing, focusing on data, that the waiver gives us an opportunity to say, okay, we have our data set. How can we use this data to positively impact our transition to Common Core? Okay, so one of the things that I think really stands out to me is that on the district level, a lot of times when we look at data, we associate data with teachers, and then we say, you know, X teacher didn't do a good job this year because only 50% of her students passed the test. And I think that that's not true, because if X teacher grew 100% of the children, whether or not they were on grade level, if all the kids grew by 1 year, even if they were in the 6th grade reading on the 2nd grade level, if by the time they left X teacher, they were on the 3rd grade level, then she's done her job for that year. And I believe that that is the part and piece of No Child Left Behind that we've overlooked And in a perfect educational world, I think we would take all those things into consideration, because 50% of the class doesn't speak to what the whole class has gained from the teacher. Beyond that, we also have to remember that teachers have massive amounts of students. That one teacher can grow 30 to 35 students with limited resources, limited support, and limited time. And I think that's a lot to ask. So if we really want things to go the way we want them to do, we have to invest more money in education, because I firmly believe in the old adage that you get what you pay for. And if we're not paying our teachers anything, they don't feel inclined to do more than they're paid to do. So if we want to get to the place that, where we're globally competitive and no child is truly left behind, then we have to look at what other nations are doing, paying their teachers, providing them with professional development that helps them become better teachers, reducing class size, and providing support that teachers actually need to help them become better and to reach each student.